Hello and welcome. In 2020 I was working as an electrician. I had been doing that for many years, and I had always believed that I could quit working full-time when I was 50, but as things would have it, we dig ourselves a hole and get comfortable with what we're doing, and by all accounts I was not in a position to leave my job. But one day I was working on my scissor lift, and that's a lift that goes up and down. I was working in a ceiling in a big smelly chicken shed, and it was hot, dirty and dusty, typical conditions that I find myself in doing what I was doing. And I was on top of that lift, and I had what might be called an epiphany. It felt like I had a download of 5 full-length movies in a very short space of time, 30 seconds or so, and all of a sudden I felt I had all the answers. I knew what I had to do. So that evening I drafted up a resignation letter, gave it to my boss the next day, and within a week I was unemployed with a huge mortgage, or a fair sized mortgage. So that left me sitting on the couch with an indication of what I was going to do, because I had already formulated a plan. So I put my property on the market, and in Australia we have a property market that has been going up non-stop now for many years, and I would suggest that property market is manipulated because we don't have any productivity in Australia. The only thing that grows our GDP is immigration and housing, so that's pretty tightly controlled by the government, and we're unlikely to see either of those falter in the near term, because we need to maintain our AAA rating, and so that's all we've got to grow our GDP, is those two things. So I made my decision based on that, knowing full well that the moment I sold my property I would be buying in a market that was still going up. So I had that spread there that I had to mitigate quite quickly. So I put my house on the market, and I sold that within a few weeks, and very shortly thereafter I bought another house, a much smaller house, and that eliminated my debt to the bank. It enabled me to keep a roof over my head, and it left me with a moderate sum, which by today's housing accounts in Australia wouldn't be enough to buy another freestanding property, but at the time it was enough to buy a unit in a high rise residential block. And so I found a unit in Tasmania, in a town in Tasmania. It was a heritage listed building, so the top floor of the building was on the market, and I purchased that, and it was leased by a hotel corporation, and they subleased it on short-term rentals, and that enabled me to purchase a set and forget property, which was looked after, including all maintenance, by this hotel company. So that gave me an income, not a great deal money-wise, but it gave me a good return of around 12%. So that took care of two things. It eliminated my job that I didn't like, and my desire to find freedom again, which we seem to have at this point in our life when we get to our mid-50s. If you're looking down that track at the moment, then hopefully you've built up some kind of resource, whether it's a resource of experience, or you've built yourself a little nest egg. But if you don't make that decision moving forward at some point, and you live with that desire, then your life can get pretty miserable if you're doing something you don't like. So that was the situation I was in, and that was the reason I made that move. So that left me then with a very small income and no debt, and that's enabled me to stack little wee jobs and little wee incomes on top of that unit income. I'm still endeavouring to do that, but it's enabled me to have 5 years of freedom now. But the second dilemma that left me in was I didn't have enough funds to continually, or enough income to continually top up my industry super. So I took that industry super and I turned it into a self-managed super fund, an SMSF, which again, there wasn't a great amount in there. But I managed to buy a very, very small property in a regional town. And this property was a old commercial shed, and it had been sitting vacant for some time. So I did that. It had no tenants, but I used my skills as a tradesperson and all the numerous experience I had renovating residential properties, which I've been doing pretty much every weekend of my life since I turned 30. And I subdivided that building into a multiple tenancy storage complex. So, common hallway down the centre with little wee divided rooms off the side, divided with metal walls and tin sheeting. And looks like I've got ants crawling over my phone. Yep, I thought I had ants crawling on me. I must be sitting near a nest somewhere. And so that gave me an exceptional return. I can't touch that until I'm 63, but that tops up my super that I now wasn't getting once I walked away. So that was the second change I made, and that's got a return of around 15%. So that was those two major changes I made. And the third change that I made, I guess, was just mindset. When I was working full time, I had a lot of disposable income, and I wasted a lot of it on accessories, which is something that we seem to do when we have an income and we're not focused. So I did that, and I've cut my expenses dramatically, and that allows me to free up my time, free up my peace of mind. Stress levels are completely dropped off, and I've also discovered the stock market. Now, I've not totally discovered the stock market. I dabbled in stocks for a long time, but I lost a lot of money. I was just taking tips off people or off clubs. Join a share broking club. That strategy doesn't really work. So what I have found, and I've self-taught myself, and I've managed to set myself up with a level 4 options trading account. And I don't trade options. I've tried that. I've managed to make it work for 12 months mediocrely. So what I do now is I write options, and an option is a contract. It's a contract between two people. One takes the option, and that gives them the option to buy or sell the underlying stock. And as an option writer, I'm obligated to buy or sell that option to the option taker should I be called to deliver it or buy their stocks. So now the way I do that is, rather than trading many or buying or writing many options, I'll just write them on a stock that's trending up, and I'll wait for some macro news. Usually it'll be something like Donald Trump changes the free trade agreement, or sends a warship carrier to Iran. That kind of stuff doesn't affect the fundamentals of the underlying stock, but it's macro news that can make it take a punt. And I sort of wait for those things, and I'll watch my stock. You only need a couple of stocks. I've only got 3 or 4 on the ASX. There's probably about 40, but I only have a couple that I watch. I wait for that macro news. I wait for the stock's going up, and then it takes a dip, and it's at that dip point where it might have dropped 5-7% that I'll write a put option, and I don't know where the stock's going to bottom out, but I'm fairly certain looking at the trend lines you can see where it's dived and always come back, and you can look at oversold indicators and trend averages and that sort of thing, so that you get fairly good technical indicators and look at the macro news. So I'll write a put option, and without getting too technical, that gives me an income because I've sold something. Some people call it leasing shares or renting shares, whatever you call it. It's just selling a contract. And depending on how many parcels of shares that I write it over, I'll get paid, me personally. You can choose how many parcels you write, so it changes the income you get. But for me, it's between $500 and $1,600 every time I write one. I wrote one a week ago and got paid $900, I think it was. And that's not something I do regularly. It's probably only something I do 2 or 3 times a month. So that gives me $1,500 a month. Then I've got my rent, and I might do a very small job occasionally. I'm toying with the idea of doing customized street maps, putting that on Etsy. I've started doing that. That's starting to show a very small return. It's a sort of a bit of a time scale thing there. It takes a bit of time to set that up, but it's progressing. So those are the steps I took, and to give me back my freedom after 50. And so if you are at the stage in your life where you've had enough, and I think we all get to that point, particularly in our late 40s or 50s, then it's really important for your own well-being, your own health, your soul, whatever you like to term it, finding your own path, that you start to take control, because I think that's part of our purpose, is to find our own story, not let it be hijacked by others. And so if you're at that point, then if you have to make a decision, but you can make a decision, then just have faith that the peace of mind that it gives you will be well worth any financial change, as long as that financial change is something that's going to bring you peace of mind and a bit of slowness in your life. Because when you get to my age, and other people say it too who are in the same age, you've got to slow down and you've got to take stock. Yeah. All right, over and out. I might see you around. Thanks for watching.